Hello, I'm Rachel, and if you're listening, you probably already knew that. This is a podcast dedicated to keeping me on track with my last New Year's resolution, reading more. I asked people across my social media sites to come up with a list of 24 books to read so I could get back into the feel of reading at least 2 books a month. I was finally able to get my hands on a copy of N.K. Jemisin's The Fifth Season, so in 2 weeks I'll be talking about that. Same bat time, same bat channel. If you were the person who suggested the book to me, feel free to reach out so we can discuss it over coffee or something. Today's fortnightly suggestion came from Sam, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Thanks, Sam! And so, without further ado, the circus arrives without warning. The Night Circus begins with the arrival of a young girl who has come to announce the death of her mother to her father. The young girl is, in a way, one of the main characters. There are so many people and none of them feel responsible enough for carrying the plot that really Celia is better described as one of the pieces in a larger game, which is ultimately what the book is about. The Night Circus, the novel, jumps around quite a bit in its timeline, so we have before the circus's inception, the time during which two of the players fall in love and expand the circus, and a few years down the line when its continuation is up for contention. In the beginning, we meet Celia and her father, who is a stage magician and who performs real magic. He has no idea of his daughter's existence prior to her arrival and is thrilled to find that she has her own powers as well. So excited that he contacts a friend of his to begin a very long game. This game involves, of course, magic. Each of the two teachers picks pupils, and these pupils make moves that involve magic to see who is the best. The author gives very limited information in the way that she writes, waiting until the end to unfold the entire scope of the game. The magician's friend chooses a boy, basically off the street, and gives him a home and training before sending him to live with a friend in need of an executive assistant, basically a Guy Friday, or just a Friday. Anyways, this man gathers a few of his friends because he wants to create a circus. Not the usual kind with elephants, but more mystifying in a way, like upscale circusry. Things that are far out but classy. There's a contortionist, but no clowns, I guess is the best way to describe what this is, what he's going for. Celia auditions to be the circus's illusionist and gets the job, obviously, since she has a huge leg up over the competition. Eventually, she and her competitor, Marco, meet each other and fall in love, of course. Celia and Marco are the pieces playing the game, and the circus is the chessboard. I didn't put that together until the end of the book. The circus has a black and white theme, like chessboard. The moves that they make in their game result in new tents or rides or exhibits throughout the circus, to which Celia actually binds her life force to. Don't know why she had to do that. Don't know why she thought that was a good idea, but it certainly requires a lot of energy, so it is impressive. Her father, who is tethered to the world but can't interact with it, so he's pretty much a ghost, and Marco's teacher show up every once in a while to pretty much say how disappointed they are, as if they didn't choose this venue themselves. But one will talk about how people can't be trusted, and they shouldn't make friends, and people don't really matter, and the other will remark on how the other competitor has a clear edge. None of them actually care about anything but winning the game, obviously. I would not suggest this book if you have issues with your parents. Let me really clearly reiterate that. If you have issues with your parents or parental figures, I would not suggest this book. In the Midnight Circus, we meet some other folk, but they are pretty insubstantial. I suppose more like pawns on the board. As much as I would have loved to know more about them, they were pretty sidelined. And almost none of those people are part of the circus, by the way. Only 3 of them. 2 kids with powers and a tarot reader who's in love with Marco. Almost everybody else has something to do with the circus tangentially. So even though at the end of the book the circus's continuation is up in the air, it feels as though this is really only going to affect a handful of people. I said that the book jumps around a lot, and the second place it jumps to is the early 1900s, when the circus has been around for 10 or 20 years. A kid in New York goes to see the spectacle on a dare, and then later it comes back to his town. He meets a girl there again, one of the kids who has powers, and eventually she sees that he's necessary for the circus's survival. I won't say how on the off chance that I'd be spoiling the ending for you, but I will say this. Usually in stories you have people that are chosen by the universe or the author or fate to do great deeds. It is written in the stars or stone or the page in front of you or whatever. Morgenstern wants literally nothing to do with that. The guy is asked to help save the circus because he showed up that day and there was literally no one else to ask. He's not special, he's just present. On the one hand, that seems like a pretty cheap out. Like, you've wasted multiple chapters on this dude and he's pretty auspicious. This seems like a wall, like a stop. On the other hand, in the real world, there are no protagonists. We are all just wandering around hoping to ascribe meaning to the things that happen to us. We're not special, but sometimes we're present. And at moments when there's no one else to ask, we should step up and try to take on the seemingly impossible tasks set before us. So while I don't necessarily enjoy how much this seemed to hit the brakes on what the author was doing throughout the book, I still respect it. Overall, I'm going to give this book a 7 out of 10 Rachels. I don't know if I would necessarily suggest this book to anybody because of the confusing pacing and the way Morgenstern tends to gloss over events without going into more detail. However, it was a fun read and entirely different from anything I've read this year. I've seen it multiple times and have always been enamored of the pop of the black and white and red cover. So now we know what's inside, and knowing is half the battle. Thanks for joining me this week. I hope this year is making you feel special and important. Thanks, and Happy New Year. So unlike other authors who write more about how magic is done, Morgenstern just sort of writes about what happens as a result, but not the extent of that result. At the end of the book, Marco is talking about Merlin stuck in a tree, which is part of the Arthurian folklore, that he just becomes part of a tree and lives forever. And then Marco says he's going to live in the flames of the circus, and then he's engulfed in flames, and that doesn't happen. We're not meant to understand what's going on during this book, but these two wizards sure are in love.